why would a business choose not to invest in 802.11ax right now?
I don't think there's any reason to choose not to invest in it. One thing I wanted to bring up that I think probably not a lot of people know is it's not as high end these days as you might think. For example, to the extent that Apple actually produces a low end phone, and they don't quite, but their lowest end phone, the Apple SE, is actually Wi-Fi 6 capable. I didn't even know that until somebody pointed me in that direction. I had to dig really deep into the specs to see if that was actually true, and it happens to be true. They don't market it much, but it is a Wi-Fi 6 capable phone, and it's just to show that it's not being necessarily marketed as high end. And I think that is a trend that has started to pick up a little bit with that device, but we'll see it more and more. And I think the acceleration of devices is going to be considerable. And if you listen to some of the analysts, there was an analyst at one of my events saying, I don't remember exactly the numbers, but he said that the number of device chipset shipments for this particular standard has actually been, the speed of the uptake has been much, much faster than for any previous Wi-Fi standard. So we are going to see these Wi-Fi 6 devices come to market faster than what has happened in previous generations of the standard, right? So I can't see any particular reason. Obviously, it's a question of where you want to put your investments in the end, right? But as everybody said on this panel, Wi-Fi is so important to everyday life practically everywhere, and business critical is in particular places that it's hard to see why you should not go down that path. Yeah, I think that's how I would probably frame it now.
I personally put my investments in Bitcoin, but anyway, Jonathan, anything you want to add to that?
I see one of the chats that the PoE. PoE, AT-PoE, and high power PoE, and the cost of multi-rate, multi-gig switching absolutely has to come into play. We've seen the network side of the house, the switching side of the house, gig PoE to the edge has been, kind of been fine for multiple refreshes, for 10, 15 years now. And, you don't have to buy all multi-rate ports. We've, got switches that have, from a cost standpoint, we have switches that only have a few multi-rate ports in them, so that you don't have to overpay for everything in your wiring closet to be that high-end multi-rate switch. And so there's definitely fiscal challenges associated with the full infrastructure. Do I have to upgrade my my cabling, right? And so when you start looking at universities and schools and hospitals, and that there's a planning stance on that. And if you look at your wireless upgrades and where that goes, but I think that the new multi-rate architecture has the same amount of longevity as the gig PoE has had in the past 10, 15-year run. And then like if you're talking about at home, if the AP doesn't have to offload that to the cable and can go peer-to-peer, right? If I don't have to ever offload that to a switch, there's some tremendous amount of peer-to-peer and sharing that go on in your home and never offloads to the Ethernet cable in itself. And so the backhaul of that is one thing, absolutely, but you can still get great efficiencies even without upgrading your switching architecture.
Hey, Jonathan, I think you're probably answering one of those questions there live, and it's a good point. Richard makes a good point. A reason not to invest or something to look at is the high cost. And usually when new technology comes out, it comes out at a substantial premium, 50%, 100%. Easily, you can expect to see some of those numbers. But actually, so Cambium's actually taken a little bit of a contrarian approach to that. And Jonathan mentioned some of the things that we've done specifically to really deliver that lower cost. If you don't mind, Jonathan, I'd like to sort of emphasize what you said there and point out a couple things. One is we do have the XV3, which is very high density. I mean, if you're looking for maximum clients at maximum bit rate, go XV3, software defined radios, top. But for the rest of the market, we should not be expecting them to buy that top tier product, right? So we have the XV2, And the XV2's price point is the same as one of our 11AC products. It's the same. And if you compare it to some of our competitors' 11AC, it's actually half the price of some of our competitors' 11AC products. So that's really, Cambium is really taking that two-step approach, right? High density, very high density, high capacity service delivery networks. We've got that product. And then the mass market Wi-Fi, no premium for Wi-Fi 6 for everybody. Now, Jonathan, you mentioned the Ethernet switch, and I think we've done some very cool things there. We looked at this and we decided that, particularly for the next couple of years, year, 18 months, 24 months, in many different markets, Wi-Fi 6 will come in smaller chunks at a time. So we have a multi-gig switch that delivers 60 watts on 6 ports. So 6 ports, multi-gigabit, 60 watts. And then there's 8 ports that are gigabit and standard PoE plus. So we did this hybrid model. And we did the hybrid model because we recognize the fact that many markets, particularly small, medium enterprise markets, they don't want to pay that twice, that 2x premium. They basically want to have no premium for Wi-Fi 6, and they want to deploy a better technology for the same price. That's what they want. So we're actually leveraging that. So that's something we can follow up on.
And with an IoT, may be slower to adopt that, from, the oil rigs and some of those things that don't need that high bandwidth. And so you're still going to have a lot of verticals that will be, some move faster into that if it's cameras and need that bandwidth, and some will move slower if it's just hello and, and lower latency okay with.
Yep.